Okay, so we just established that most of the water used in the United States is for irrigation. We just talked about what spray irrigation was, and there are 3 more types that you need to understand. So, the next one is what we call furrow irrigation. Okay. Furrow irrigation is when we have rows between crops. You guys know what this looks like. And the rows are filled with water. Okay, so that's furrow irrigation. The next type is what we call flood irrigation. You can imagine what that is just by the name of it. With flood irrigation, we literally flood a field with water. There's a massive problem with this, though, is that 20% of this water is lost to evaporation. So it's not a great method. Okay? The last one is, I'm going to go up here at the top, it's called drip irrigation. All right, with drip irrigation, it uses hoses with holes in it, basically. So it uses perforated, that means holes, uses perforated hoses to release small amounts of water. Okay, now the question is, where do we get all of this water from? You know, it's easy to say that, you know, it just comes out of our faucet, but where is this actually coming from? It comes from this right here. So in the United States, we have a massive aquifer that spans from South Dakota all the way to Texas. This is called the Ogawala Aquifer. Yes, I know it's kind of a silly name, but it is the Ogawala Aquifer. And it's groundwater. So this is a massive aquifer that is under the ground that we tap into for mostly irrigation. Okay, now the problem though is this water has been here for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay, it's confined, meaning that we don't have a constant input and output. Okay, the only time an aquifer like this gets recharged, meaning more water's added to it, is if it rains. And if you think about it, guys, especially in this region of the United States, we can go through some pretty extensive drought. So the problem with this is we cannot use it faster than it can be replenished. Okay, so it becomes depleted if overused for agriculture, which is what we're seeing right now. Okay, so we have to always consider that an aquifer this size is going to have a slow recharge rate. Okay, we have to keep that into consideration. The only thing that will recharge it is rain. Okay. All right, so moving on to the next part of that green revolution, and this is fertilizers and pesticides. Okay, so there's pros and there's cons, obviously, so we're going to look at the both of those. And what I really want you guys to understand is the production of fertilizers and pesticides also contributes to climate change. So the production of these contributes to climate change. Why? Because we have to use fossil fuels to produce them. Okay? Also, you have to take into consideration fertilizers, guys, and this is going back to first semester. I'm telling you, all this stuff is tied together. If you have too much fertilizers, what does this lead to? Runoff. If you have fertilizer in water that runs off and it gets into another body of water, what does this lead to? There's that big word, eutrophication. Okay? And what page is eutrophication on in our notes? Let's go back to Unit 3 and find it. Eutrophication is on page 32. So I really want you to go back and reference that page to remind yourself what that process is. Okay? All right. So let's start with fertilizers. Okay. So fertilizers, they can be organic or inorganic. Okay? So right here, these are two types of organic fertilizers. We have manure, which is cow poop, okay? And we have composting. Some of you guys may even do composting at your house, but it's a great natural way to supplement plant growth, okay? Now, we also have inorganic fertilizers. Okay, so these are the ones that are synthetic. These are chemicals. These are chemicals made in a factory. These are the ones that will lead to eutrophication because they have lots of nitrogen and phosphorus. Okay? All right. Now, pesticides, on the other hand, these are meant to take away, obviously, pests. So, grasshoppers, flies, any other type of insect that will damage crop production. Okay? So, pesticides are meant to deter pests. Okay? Now, if you use pesticides too much, it causes what we call artificial selection. Okay? These types of insects can get used to the toxins and they can become immune to it. Okay, so let's think about this. You know someone whose house is infested with roaches. Gross, right? Okay. If you were to take pesticide and spray all the roaches, are all of them going to die? No, because some of them are going to be immune and they're going to pass that immunity on to their offspring. Okay? So that is what we want to try to avoid. Overusing pesticides can lead to that. So, overuse leads to resistance through artificial selection. And guys, all artificial selection means is it's human caused. It's not natural selection, not like evolution. Artificial selection means that it's forced by humans. Okay? So, what this leads to is decreases, or they're meant to decrease crop damage. No, my handwriting's getting really bad. Decrease crop damage. Therefore, increase crop yields. Okay, so I want to go back and look at this pesticide overuse. This is what we call a pesticide treadmill. Y'all know what a treadmill is. It's the thing you run on, and the tread just keeps going in a circle, so that's what you run on, and keep going and going and going. That's what happens with pesticides, okay? So you have a crop infested with pesticides, you develop a new one. Great, you apply it. Most of them die, but guess what? Some resistant ones survive, okay? They pass that resistance on to their offspring, so we have to come up with a new pesticide. We spray it again. It keeps going over and over and over. That's called a pesticide treadmill. That is what we do not want. It's adding more and more toxins to the environment, okay? Now, there's a lot of controversy about GMOs. GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Now, you'll see a lot of things out on the internet. If I told you, hey, go look on the internet for opinions about GMOs, you're going to come up with lots of different things. And I'm going to tell you right now, because we are scientists, we're going to look at the science. We're going to look at the data. We're not going to look at other people's opinions who have no knowledge of this type of stuff. Okay? So you'll see a lot of what I call their crunchy people. Okay? They'll say GMOs are so bad because we don't know the long-term effects and they can cause cancer and yada, yada, yada. You know what? We don't know the long-term effects. You're right. We don't know what GMOs are going to be like in 200 years. But here's the thing. We've been using GMOs for a long time. There have been study after study after study. And you can go find these actual studies with data on the internet. And there are no known side effects to eating GMOs. Y'all, everything that you buy in the grocery store is genetically modified. Period. It is. Think about it. How many different kinds of apples can you buy? When I was a kid, there was like 3. Okay? How many different kinds of apples are there? How many different kinds of oranges are there? It's just crazy. Go look at a box of cereal. The corn, the wheat, whatever's in it is genetically modified. It's in everything. Okay? So, with that being said, why do we use GMOs? Okay? They are genetically engineered to be resistant to pests and disease. Okay? So they're grown that way. Now, downside is it leads to a loss of biodiversity. Now, like I said, GMOs are in everything, and one of the biggest food corporations in the business is Monsanto. Monsanto is awful. So if you have a farmer who is not using genetically modified seeds when they're growing their crop, and their neighbor is using Monsanto seeds. Okay, so these are seeds that Monsanto has created themselves. And somehow, pollination happens. Somehow, a Monsanto rep comes out and is, looking at the farms, and they see one of the Monsanto crops on the field of the other farmer. They will sue him without him even having planted those Monsanto seeds. So, one of your assignments, I'm going to have you guys watch a video about Monsanto so you can see exactly what they're like. All right, so we will pick up on the next page.